Hi guys, it's Debbie with Debbie J's Crafting Corner. Today I'm going to be playing with the Perfect Floral Bloom rather, stamp and die of the month. And you probably see I've got a bunch of kind of weird looking stuff over to the side. What I was going to start stamping, and then I realized that all of the stamps in this set, all of this, they are all layering stamps. So you've got several different bits that are designed to be layered up, and then a die to cut out that full layer. And to make sure that everything is done lined up so that I don't have any problem with die cutting, what I think I'm going to do is something that you can do for mass producing, which I'm kind of do today, and that is make a template to use in your MISTI. To do that, I'm going to lay out all of my little dies and basically cut out the template first. So I'm going to lay everything out, and then I'm going to cut out the template, and then I can cut out multiples of each of these shapes to pop into that template and then do all of my stamping. So first thing, I'm just going to line everything up on my cardstock. So I've got one template for all of these guys. And just taping it down with some purple tape. You can use washi tape, whatever you've got will work. I also decided to stack up each of the stamps so that I know what goes with what. That's just going to be a little bit better for organization for me. And then once I get everything die cut, I'll be able to just look back and see, okay, these go with this specific one. I think I'm also going to, yes, I think I'm going to create a PDF so that I'll have it for future reference of which stamps go with which, because nothing is labeled on the acetate. But it won't be that hard to figure it out, but I know it'll save me some time instead of me having to go back through and line everything up again like what I did this time. Now that I've got everything lined up there, I can run that through my die cutting machine, and that will create my template. Okay, so now that I've got all of these little guys cut out for the template, I'm going to go ahead and cut out a bunch of the little bits, and then I'll just save the template in with my stamp and die, so I always have it ready to go. Okay, so now I've got I've got a bunch of each of these. Actually, I only die cut out 4 because, yeah, I don't want to have too many in my stash because then I don't actually use them, but I'm sure I will use up these. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring back over that template. Here's my template. And the first stamp I'm going to do for each of these is going to be, I'm going to do some greens first. So there are actually, for example, let's go with this one. For this one, we've got the flowers. So I've got some flowers. I've got the stems. And then we've got the leaves. That means there's going to be 3 different layers. And I think what I'm going to start off with is going to be the stems. So I'll have the stems in the background, and then I'm actually looking at the wrong one. Am I looking at the wrong one? Yes, it's this one. Okay. I think. Oh my goodness, I have got the wrong stem on this. Okay, I got it figured out. Yay! Okay, these are not in the order that they are in here, but you know what? That is okay as well. So I'm going to start off with the stems, and I do have them lined up with which one it's supposed to be. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to place it in there in the void. Just place it in there for each of those stems, and then I will pick it up. And most of these do have a stem piece. I mean, there are some that are just the flowers, and there are some that are just the leaves all in there. And then I'm going to pick it up with the lid of my MISTI. Okay, and now they're all going to be stamping in the right spot. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I think for the stems I'm going to do in the dark green. I do need to put in one of my little things. So these are each going to just pop right into the spot where they were die cut, right? So I'm using Deck the Halls for this. It's going to stamp right down into that. If I've got everything lined up in those wells, they should be fine. And to me, that looks pretty good. These are brand new stamps, so they need a little bit more help, so I'm going to put a little more ink down. Okay, so that looks pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and do the rest of these, and then we'll go on to the next color. Okay, now that we've got all the stems done, I'm going to move on to the leaves. So I'm taking all of my little pieces off, all of the stamps that I've already done the stems with, off of my stamp platform, and then I'm going to instead go to the leaf ones that are kind of the next step on some of these. And this is the first time I'm using this stamp set, guys, so I just noticed that on the stamps themselves, and I don't think you can see it, but there are some little lines there that line up with the stems that we just added. So that's going to make it a lot easier to line up. So you just put your stamp in place pretty much in the area that was die cut out, but then you also line it up with those little lines. And this one's got it too. This is super awesome. So that's going to make this look a lot better. This is one of those things that a lot of folks I know do struggle with, is layering up their stamps. And I think this is going to make it so much easier. So I'm going to go ahead and line all of these up. I'm just doing the leaves right now, and then I'm going to move on and go to one of the brighter colors that's going to be my flowers. Okay, I think this one is the last one of the leaves. So let me pick those up, and then I'm going to go in with a lighter green color. I'm going to use Grass Skirt for this. Okay, and you notice that the only ones that I left in the... Yes, that's in the right spot, I think. The only ones that I left in the die spaces, in the little holes, are the ones that are going to need leaves. And that makes it easier so that you don't accidentally contaminate a different ink pad when you're doing your inking. Guess what? I have done that before. So let's see how this does. Okay, and I do think this is going to need a second layer. Again, these are all brand new stamps, so sometimes they don't pick up the ink quite as good as you'd like. Plus, this is a light green. I think I'm probably going to go in a couple more layers just to get it bright enough, but I think that is looking pretty good. Okay, so now I'm going to swap these out just like I did the others. By the way, in between, I rearranged all of my little guys over here so that I would be able to see what basically everything is positioned about where it is on my template, so that it's easier to swap in and out. So I'm going to swap all of mine out for this green leaf stamp, and then I can start stamping the rest. Okay, so now we've got all of our leaves done, and I need to then go and set up what color I want to do for my first batch of flowers. Because the way that this is set up, you know, the leaves are probably going to be green regardless, or unless you're doing a fall theme, which this would go great with fall too. You could do different colors, you know, you could do kind of do some reds and browns, and that would make it for a really pretty, I think anyway, a really pretty fall card. But what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to do some pretty flowers. So to do this, I'm doing the same thing I did the last time, and that is lining these guys up. This is like some little buds, so I've got them lined up with the tips of my little stems there. Go down to this next one and line that one up in those spots with my stem. And another way that you can do that would be, of course, to take the die cut out before you put everything in. But I'm going to just do it this way. And then adding this little bloom. And now I get to use these guys. So for this one, I'm going to use the first one, which is going to be the background, do the bigger one. I'm going to lay that in place. Same thing with my other two flowers, the big flowers. Gonna lay the big piece into the space, and it fits pretty snug, so that is nice. So I've got these 3 individual flowers, and I still need to add these last couple. This one is the blossoms on the end of those stems, and then this little bud. So we go right about there. And since inks do tend to be, especially dye inks, they tend to be translucent, you'll be able to see some of the green through the brighter color. Okay, so I think what I'm going to use for this first batch is going to be Party Dress. So let me add these little pieces in first, and then I can start stamping my flowers. There we go. So I'm going to use some Party Dress. This is a pretty color. And this is kind of a juicy ink pad, so I'm making a mess all over the place. Let's see how that one does though. Okay, those do look, it looks like this one didn't have quite lined up to begin with, but overall this is looking nice. I'm gonna do one more layer of the ink and then I can start swapping them out and working on the next batch. Okay, so now I have a bunch of pretty flowers, and now I need to go back and do the second layer on a couple. I've got 1, 2, 3 of those that need additional color for the flowers, and that's these 3, so I can take all the other ones down. And using my tweezers definitely makes it quicker and easier for me to get these out, since that is a little bit tacky underneath. Okay. So let's clean this up. So first I'm going to add these little pieces to approximately the center of each of the flowers. And you can use the same color again if you want, because all it's going to do is add a little bit darker of that one, but I think I'm going to change it up a little bit. I have no idea if this is going to be a good color combination or not, but you know. So for the Tutti Frutti ones, I'm going to use a little bit of Party Dress. And see how that does. Just add a little bit of ink to each of those and let's stamp them down, see how that does. Haha, that does look kind of cool. It just added a little bit of color right there to the center of each of those flowers. And I probably don't have them lined up perfect, but you know what? This is stamping, this is handmade, so it doesn't really matter. It doesn't have to be perfect, right? Okay, now I am going to, and since I got multiples of the same kind of thing, people are going to think that they are all perfect, right? So next I'm going to just switch it out for another one. So I think I'm going to go with the pink, which is my Party Dress, a red instead. So that one, I'm going to use some Cranberry Fizz. And I do think I'm going to change where I put this one down because I didn't really like how far off it was. The other two look fine to me. This one was a little bit further off than I wanted. There we go. And of course it's sticking to the stamp, so now I got to put my little guys back in the slots. Okay, so now let's go in with some Cranberry Fizz. I don't know how dry that one is. I probably need to re-ink it, but that still looks pretty cute. Add a little bit more, make it a little bit darker. Every layer that you put down, well, up to a point, it should make it a little bit darker than the one before. So those I think look perfect. Okay, those look perfect. They don't even need a second layer, I don't think. Okay, so that is going to finish up the stamping. So next, I need to figure out what kind of cards I want to make. Once I got through all of those cute little images and got them separated out by color so that they're easier for me to work with, I decided, you know what? I've already been playing with some of the other stuff from the new releases for the club kits, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. So what I'm doing at this point is I am making a few panels using the embossing folder of the month. This one is called Intertwined Lattice. I think that is super pretty. And just running that through my Platinum 6. The normal sandwich for this depending on the paper you're using. If it's too thick, it sometimes is a little difficult to go through. Is you've got your platform, you've got your embossing folder with the paper inside, and then you've got your top plate. What I've noticed is if I use a full 5.5 by 8.5 piece of cardstock, heavyweight, that it doesn't really like to go through. It's really, really tight. But that also tells you why you get that really nice impression, because it definitely puts plenty of pressure down. So here's the one that I just sent through there. So that's going to be my backgrounds. Now I do have some already done up in some blue, but now I've got some white as well, and I've got, oh, this is going to be pretty. Also, one of the other pieces that are in the club kits is this outlined sentiment set. Now these are super pretty. Let me get some of this out of the way so you can see the ones oh, here we go. These are the ones I've already put together. They come in, the sentiments themselves come in 2 layers. So you've got your background and you've got that pretty script. So I went ahead and did a few of those. I do more thank you and hello cards than I do of anything else. And this one still needs to go through. So this is the thanks. I do have the background already done for it. So let me go ahead and run that one through. Since this is so intricate, I'm also using a metal shim that came with my big kit. I don't know if there's one available from Spellbinders, but that has worked really well as an additional shim for me. You can always experiment and use what works best with your specific machine. You may not need an additional shim. Okay, so I'm just running that through. I'm going to go back and forth a couple of times. And it looks like I went the wrong direction. I cut into my top plate. I did not mean to do that. So now I've got thanks on my plate. Okay. But you can tell it did cut through, and that's fine. Now I'm going to go ahead and add that to the background layer that I had previously cut. This one is in some red foil. So what I'm going to do is grab a hold of my little piece of my sentiment and tap it into a little bit of adhesive, and then tap off some of the excess so that I can just add that right in there. And what's fun is with this thanks die, you can cut off the S. The white piece of the S, the little piece, doesn't cut, it cuts out separate anyway. But you could always trim off the backing. Okay. Now the A is not going to be perfect because I accidentally cut down the end, and that I think is okay. So now I've got this little T. Okay, now I'm going to just add my T. So now I've got an additional sentiment. That'll look cool. That would probably look pretty nice with my pink, but I haven't decided on colors yet because I'm kind of thinking I wanted to use the other pink foil cardstock one. Okay, so now I'm going to start kind of arranging things and deciding what I want to use on what card, but it looks like I've got enough. Oh, and also with this set we've got some flowers, and those are super pretty too. Those are in that one. I've got so many different fun things to play with. Oh my goodness. So anyhow, I'm going to start assembling some cards, and it looks like I've got enough stuff out to do at least 3 or 4. So we're going to go ahead and start assembling. Okay, I think this layout looks pretty nice. There are a lot of flowers left over, but it can be clean and simple, and that's kind of what I'm going for here. So let me go ahead and take these guys off and just start adding a little bit of that on. I'm going to glue my flowers down flat, and I'm debating whether or not I want to try doing any foam behind my thanks. Let's see. Have this kind of still in the center, I think. Okay, now that I moved it, I don't know where I want my stuff. Okay, that I think is gonna work about where I want it. Okay. Just adding my leaves. And I can always change my mind and add some more things if I want, you know? Okay, and now I'm going to add this leaf. this little branch here. Then add my flower. Okay, so if I put this guy right there in the center, don't think it really needs any more. I think that is going to be pretty. I don't think it really needs anything more, which means I've got pieces to add to another card. And I may do one of my other ones a little busier, but let's see. I'm going to try cutting down. I do have my foam tape. Oops, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to use some of the foam squares and cut those down. This will give more dimension. And this comes in the card kit. As long as I cut them about right, they should fit on here fine. So behind my K, and then behind my T. And of course, another way to do this would be to just die cut out the thanks. Okay, that looks about right. So now I'm going to just remove the release paper and put that pretty sentiment down. Okay, so now I'm going to just add that right in the center there. Now that is pretty. And all I need to do is just add that to my card base. And I love how that one turned out. That is really, really pretty. So I started playing with the purple. That is the Sweet 16, I think was the color. Also, there are some stamps in with that perfect floral bloom set that are for sentiments. So I stamped out and cut out a few of those and just kind of arranged, I think, where I want this to lay. I'm going to use this time some press and seal. This is some old press and seal, but it does still stick. I'm going to use that on here so I can pretty much line up everything where I want it. So now I can add, I'm going to add foam tape behind the back of all of that, I think. Okay, so now I've got all of the foam on there and the release paper off, and I'm going to place that. See, another thing that's kind of cool is this is translucent. You can see through it, so you can kind of have an idea of where you're going to place everything before you do it. So I think my sentiment is pretty straight. I think that's the one that I'm not going to really press down as much, but I'm going to press down on everything else. And now I'm going to remove the press and seal. So everything is pretty much stuck down right there. And now I'm going to go back in and make sure that my sentiment is right where I want it. Okay, so that looks pretty close. And it looks like some of these are not completely attached, so I'm going to put a little bit of glue down behind some of my bits so it adheres to the ones behind them. Because you remember, all of this is being held down by that foam. And I'm putting probably a little more glue on there that is absolutely necessary, but that's because of all those grooves. And I line that up right in the center. And now we have a second thank you card. I think this is really lovely. So for this one, I'm going to make a hello card, and this is using the die of the month. So this one is the one that has all these fun sentiments, but it also had a lot of pretty flowers. And looking at these, you can tell that the flowers pretty much match everything in the stamp. So that is pretty cool. So I can kind of incorporate both if I want. For this one, I'm going to have the hello right there in the middle. Let me go ahead and add a little bit of foam to the back of it. Okay, so that's going to look pretty good. Let me take off the release paper. And I think I'm going to actually put this one kind of at askew intentionally. I think that looks kind of cool. I'll put some foam on the back of my little flower here. And for this, I'm just going to add it directly down onto that background panel with some liquid glue. Okay, so that is going to finish up my third card. That is going to finish up this card video. I did make, 3 pretty much clean and simple cards that would be so super easy for mass production. You guys have a wonderful day. Check out this playlist for some other videos where I'm using Spellbinders products. And remember, if I can make it, you can too. I will see you next time. Bye, guys.